Welcome to your October 2021 horoscope. My name is Cailin, and today I'm going to be covering the major transits for the month ahead using tropical astrology and the whole sign system. I strongly recommend that you watch your horoscope for your ascendant sign first and foremost, because it will be the most accurate for you overall. Having said that, if you have time to also watch your sun sign and moon sign horoscopes, please do so, because the sun sign horoscope will tell you more about your life goals and your career, whereas the moon sign horoscope will tell you more about your home life, your family life, and your current state of emotional health and well-being. Now, before I get into the horoscopes, I just want to kind of announce that it's been 12 months since I did my very first horoscope series, which I launched on the 1st of October 2020. So a lot has happened in that time. The channel has grown so much and I've connected with so many of you guys, and I just love hearing from you. I love reading your comments and interacting with you more personally. So if these horoscopes resonate for you, please drop me a comment, let me know what's going on in your life. And if you want to connect with me on Instagram and Facebook, I'll leave a link in the description box below, but it's basically just Castrology, which is the same handle as what I use for my YouTube channel. So wishing you guys a prosperous October 2021. And without further ado, let's dive into the horoscopes. Hi Pisces, Sun, Moon and Risings. Welcome to your October 2021 horoscope. On the 1st of October or the 30th of September, depending where you live in the world, Venus in Scorpio in your 9th house will square Jupiter in Aquarius in your 12th house. The 9th house is all about our vision for the future and seeing the bigger picture. Venus as a planet represents relationships. With Venus ruling over your 8th house, this represents your ability to be vulnerable in your emotionally intimate relationships or in your sexually intimate relationships. Because squares have a very challenging push and pull type of energy, you may feel like while you can see the bigger picture, you're not that able to act on it. And that's because of this square to your ruling planet. And with Jupiter in the 12th house, this is all about your subconscious fears that may be bubbling up when you are faced with the opportunity to invest in one of these relationships further. Now, Venus also rules over your 3rd house. So this could be about your relationship with a sibling, with a relative, with a friend, a client, a colleague, or even a teammate. The 3rd house represents communications. So you may be feeling quite choked up when you're trying to reveal a more vulnerable side of yourself with one or more of these individuals. Now, on a different level, the 3rd house represents communications in terms of writing, education, and also filming YouTube videos. So literally any form of communications is governed by the 3rd house. So with your ruling planet being in the 12th house, which is very spiritual and very psychological, you may feel like you have gained all of this spiritual wisdom, and you may have all of these downloads of information or these lofty ideals for writing pieces or communications pieces that you want to put out into the world. But again, you may be held back by these subconscious fears of being vulnerable. Venus is in your 9th house, which represents publications and being known on a more international platform. So this transit is asking you to really dig deep into why you cannot share this more emotionally vulnerable side of yourself with other people, or why you feel as though you won't be accepted by the people who come across your communications pieces. Now, on the 6th of October, there will be a new moon at 13 degrees Libra in your 8th house. And it will actually be in exact conjunction with Mars, and it will be in a wide conjunction with Mercury, which will be retrograde at that time. New moons are all about a new chapter starting somewhere in our lives. So the 8th house represents our mutual resources as well as our emotionally intimate relationships. So on a more material front, there may be a new beginning happening with respect to resources that you have combined with another individual or with a few other individuals. So this could indicate a change in your partner's financial circumstances, which in turn will affect your mutual resources. The same can be said for a business partner or business partners. On a different level, this may see there being a family trust fund being started, and this is represented by Mercury, which is involved in this new moon, ruling over your 4th house of family. Given that Mercury is retrograde, this may be something that was discussed beforehand, or perhaps you were cut off from your family trust fund and now you've been reintegrated back into the fold. On a different level, you may actually be increasing the prices of services that you offer. Mercury rules over your 7th house, which represents not just your one-on-one relationships, but it also represents your client relationships in terms of deals, transactions, and your services with consulting. On a different note, if you're not increasing your prices, there may simply be an increase in the amount of services that you are offering. Now, this new moon in Libra may see you starting a new emotionally intimate relationship or a new sexual relationship. For those of you who are in a relationship, you may be taking your sex life to a different level. Interpret that any way that you will, but another way that that can play out is that you may decide that you want to get couples counseling together. For those of you who are not having changes happen in your mutual resources and who aren't seeing changes on the relationship front, you may actually decide to engage the services of an astrologer or a tarot reader or anyone who works in the spiritual industry. Now, this can see you going back to the same astrologer or the same person that you've seen before, as represented by Mercury being retrograde in this instance. On a different level, you may simply have a newfound interest in these areas. Maybe you weren't interested in astrology beforehand or in anything to do with the occult or anything esoteric, and now you're wanting to know about your astrological birth chart further. Lastly, with this new moon in Libra, you may start receiving child support, or you may start paying child support. Mars rules over your 2nd house of finances. So this shows that on some level, your finances or your resources will change, whether that's you spending money, which can certainly happen with Mars being the ruler of your 2nd house, or with you receiving money. It can absolutely cut both ways. Now, on the 9th/10th of October, the Sun, Mars, and Mercury will all be conjunct at 16 degrees Libra. So this is going to be obviously, 3 or 4 days after the new moon in Libra, when the moon has just started to grow a little bit. This is the best time to actually put your plan in motion and take a practical step, because the new moon is all about setting the intention. So this is about actually backing that up and following that up with a tangible step. So an example of what you could do to commemorate this new moon in Libra would be for you to book this psychology appointment, to book your astrology or tarot reading. Maybe you want to buy a tarot deck. Maybe you want to submit an application to apply for spousal maintenance. Now, between the 6th and the 19th of October, we will see 4 planets stationing direct. So those will be Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mercury. But let's break it down. On the 6th or the 7th of October, Pluto will station direct in Capricorn in your 11th house. It has spent the last 5 months being retrograde in your 11th house, and now that it is direct, there may be a total transformation of your wider network. You may have said goodbye to certain groups or communities that you used to be involved in. You may have totally transformed your friendship circle. On a different level, if you weren't saying goodbye to certain groups or communities or friends, there may be a rebirth that has taken place in terms of that sphere of your life. So perhaps your friendship circle has started coming together again. Maybe it was a group of you who used to work together and now you're all having a reunion and you've sort of, rejuvenated those connections. On a different level, the 11th house rules over your long-term goals and projects. Maybe you've scrapped certain plans and maybe you've given birth to new ones. Maybe you have totally new ideas for what you want to do going forwards, or maybe you want to form a new group or community. Now, on the 11th of October, Saturn will station direct in Aquarius in your 12th house. You may have had this inability to get a proper night's sleep over the last 5 months. You may have not felt able to relax or to unwind. Now that Saturn is direct, you may have a much easier time falling asleep, or you may have a much easier time meditating. And on a different level, you may be able to ground certain fantasies as represented by the 12th house into reality as represented by Saturn ruling your 11th house. Now, on the 18th of October, your ruling planet Jupiter will station direct in Aquarius in your 12th house. This can see many of you Pisceans finally being able to integrate the spiritual wisdom and knowledge that you've gained over the last 5 months into your everyday life. Jupiter is not just your ruling planet, it also rules over your 10th house. So perhaps you've gained some important wisdom, which is now going to allow you to take the next step towards your life's mission or your soul's calling. And on a different note, the 12th house is an extremely psychological house. And wherever Jupiter goes, it can really bestow a blessing or a healing in that house. And of course, it's your ruling planet. So for many of you Pisceans, you may now be able to heal from certain emotional baggage that you feel that you've been carrying around with you, whether that's at a subconscious level or even from a past life. Now, on the 18th or 19th of October, Mercury will station direct in Libra in your 8th house. This can see any kind of hiccups that you've been experiencing with regard to your mutual resources finally calming down. Maybe your partner's pay was delayed. Maybe your business partner's contribution to your mutual resources was either delayed, or maybe they were experiencing big fluctuations in how much they were able to contribute financially. Now, some of you may have recommenced sessions with a therapist, or again with your trusty astrologer or tarot reader or Reiki healer. It could be anyone who comes under that sort of occult, esoteric spirituality umbrella. Or perhaps some of you reconnected with an intimate lover from the past. Now, on the 19th of October, Mars in Libra in your 8th house will trine Jupiter in Aquarius in your 12th house. Wherever Mars goes, this is where we are putting a lot of energy and effort into the matters that house governs. So, with Mars trining your ruling planet Jupiter, you may be putting a lot of energy and effort and long hours into doing some really, really deep research. Now, this could be research about how to heal yourself. This could be about healing practices, spirituality. This could be about anything esoteric or occult in nature. This could be to do with some sort of conspiracy theory that you want to investigate. Now, this transit can see your spiritual wisdom really expanding, and this is via you doing such deep research into these areas. Now, you may feel like you're able to develop your knowledge of yourself on a really deep and psychological level, and this could lead to you having some kind of epiphany, which is represented by Jupiter being in your 12th house. The 12th house represents anything which is intangible and unseen. It's also the house of anything which is mystical in nature, and the 8th house has those kinds of connotations also. So your deep research into understanding things that are beneath the surface, or, removing the veil, could lead you to honing some kind of intuitive or psychic ability. Of course, Pisces are so well known for having intuitive and psychic abilities, but in order to develop those further, deep research must be done, and the 8th house is known as the house of initiation, so you can have a major breakthrough moment around this time, which once again is the 19th of October. Now, on the 20th of October, there will be a full moon in Aries at 27 degrees in your 2nd house. The 2nd house is associated with your finances and your resources, and full moons represent some kind of chapter coming to a close, or some kind of situation reaching its peak. Interestingly, with this full moon, we will see the sun, which of course is always going to be exactly opposite the moon in a full moon, being conjunct Mars, which is the ruler of this full moon. So for some of you Pisceans, you may be letting go of a stream of income, or there may be the end of some kind of payment cycle, or you may no longer have access to certain resources. Now, this could be linked to your mutual resources with another person, and I say that because, once again, Mars, which rules over your 2nd house, is conjunct the sun. So maybe you're going through some kind of breakup. Maybe you're no longer collaborating with a certain person, and now you have to rely solely on your own finances and on your own resources. On a different level though, some of you may be able to procure some kind of valuable or possession. And lastly, with this one, you may feel like you have leveled up in some way with regard to your self-worth. Now, something to note with this full moon is that it will be making a pretty tight square to Pluto in Capricorn, which will be in your 11th house. And the full moon will be sextiling your ruling planet Jupiter. So you may experience an unnerving level of fear, as represented by the square to Pluto, when it comes to knowing what you're going to do next. Pluto rules over your 9th house, which represents seeing the bigger picture. And the fact that Pluto's in your 11th house, which is also representing your long-term goals and dreams, you can see this intersection between, okay, this is how I see my future going, and this is what my goals and dreams are. So this square to Pluto can see you feeling a tremendous amount of trepidation and fear when it comes to knowing what the next step is. But this fear is only the fear of the unknown, because you're not seeing what is around the corner. With this sextile to Jupiter in your 12th house, by you meditating, resting and relaxing and spending time in quiet solitude, you may be able to access that spiritual part of you which has this inner knowing that even though I can't see what's around the corner, I know that things are going to work out for the best. Now, on the 22nd of October, Mars in Libra in your 8th house will square Pluto in Capricorn in your 11th house. This transit is really following on from that full moon energy, which will have dredged up some fears and some apprehension, like I mentioned. So this Mars in Libra square Pluto and Capricorn transit is actually asking you to do a real deep dive into what your fears actually are. Your fears may be connected to the thought of what a father figure or a teacher or mentor might think of your next step or of what your ideas for the future are. And that's represented by Mars and Pluto, both being the rulers of your ninth house. Now, you may be experiencing some kind of inferiority complex. Maybe you feel like you don't have all of the answers or all of the knowledge that you think that you should have by now in order to be able to take that next step. Now, you may be experiencing fears or blockages when it comes to your feelings of worthiness about being financially independent or your ability to access finances and resources. And this is shown by Mars ruling over your second house. Now, the energy of Mars in your eighth house, which is an extremely psychological house, squaring Pluto in Capricorn, which is about knowing what you want to do in the long term. This concoction of energies can lead to you experiencing analysis paralysis. Maybe you're feeling like you simply can't take one step forward because you're terrified of making a misstep. Maybe you are experiencing feelings of social anxiety as represented by Pluto in the 11th house. Pluto is very psychological in nature, and when it is in hard aspects, such as a square or an opposition or even a conjunction, we can just have this overwhelming sense of foreboding, but it may not really be based on anything which is credible or anything which is tangible. We may not be able to put our finger on exactly why we feel this way. So many of you Pisceans may not even be openly confronting these feelings of fear, but I just want to leave you with this lovely little book, which I think you guys will benefit from reading or listening to on YouTube. It's called There's No Such Thing as a Dragon by Jack Kent. And the premise of this book is basically that, we're going to keep feeling fearful of something the longer we ignore it. It's kind of like the elephant in the room. Once you're able to talk about it, articulate it, analyze it, and discuss it with another person, the fear of this thing seems to diminish, or it may reduce even slightly. And so Pisces, that's all I have for you for October 2021. If you enjoyed this horoscope, please give the video a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more content on this channel, please hit the subscribe button. Enjoy your month ahead, and I will see you guys next month.